coming up on the next Inside NAU. It's an impressive Make a Difference week. Community college partnerships are creating opportunities for future nurses, and volunteers are planting in an area burned by wildfire. These and other stories just ahead on Inside NAU. Welcome to Inside NAU, a show highlighting Northern Arizona University. I'm your host, Teresa Beer, here inside Extended Campuses, a department we'll highlight in just a moment. A couple of years ago, the Schultz Fire burned about 15,000 acres near Flagstaff. Inside NAU's Carly Strauss has this story on the recovery efforts in the burn areas.
Thanks, Teresa. This fall, volunteers have been on the mountain, planting ponderosa pine seedlings, which were started right here on South Campus. At Northern Arizona University's greenhouse, 5,000 seedlings were started for planting on the burn area. At the start, they grow to 6 inches pretty quickly, but then the growth rate slows way down.
Ponderosa pine is a very tough species, and these seedlings are ready to go. In this time of the year is a perfect time to plant ponderosa pine seedling because the ground is warm and the weather is cool, and it makes for a good start for them.
Patterson estimates it will take about 60 years for these seedlings to reach maturity, when they look like the ponderosas seen around Flagstaff and on the mountain. On a crisp Saturday morning, 40 volunteers were briefed on safety and best practices for planting on the Northern Arizona forest.
You want to have your cones at least 5 feet apart.
Volunteers gathered off Schultz Pass. When wildfire came through here in 2010, it burned severely because of the extreme tree density.
So today we're planting at a much lower density of only about 100 trees per acre, and that will help ensure in the future that we have a healthy and open forest that will allow the fire to return back naturally and burn mostly on the ground instead of getting up into the crown, such as this fire did.
The Schultz Fire brought devastation to many Northern Arizonans, which is why some volunteers were eager to participate in this replanting.
We weren't under mandatory evacuation, but we had flooding issues where 3 of our neighbors were flooded. And I think that this is part of making that better for the future as well.
Nearly half of the volunteers at this event were children.
I think it's really important that they have a hand in planting these trees today, because when I die, they'll be still little trees, but when they're old and they bring their grandchildren here, they can say, we were part of this. We planted these trees in this section of this part of the forest.
I hope that in about 80 to 100 years, we're going to see a nice maturing forest where the trees are tall, and people aren't going to see very much evidence of the fire that burned here, and that people want to come back out here and just hike and picnic and camp out here.
It's unclear how many of these seedlings will thrive, but organizers of this event hope 70% survive. While the forest has started its recovery, there is a long way to go.
The trees also help bring back the habitat. It's not just about the trees, it's about restoring all the flora and the fauna. And since ponderosa pine is the structural tree out there, in order to have the forbs and the grasses and the elk and the deer and all the other rodents, you need to start with the ponderosa pine to get that habitat established.
Patterson jokes that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. For Inside NAU, I'm Carly Strauss.
More information about the replanting efforts in the Schultz Fire burn area is available through the Coconino National Forest. The LGBT, or lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered communities are growing across the world. That growth is reflected on college campuses and here at Northern Arizona University. A host of activities were held on campus around National Coming Out Day. Organizers say face painting was a fun idea because sexual preference is not always apparent. By painting their faces, participants could let others know more about them. and raise awareness for various social issues.
Whereas a lot of people may not identify somewhere as LGBTQA, there's not a person that has not been affected by the gender binary or sexual orientation discrimination. It affects everyone, and it spans across all identities. And there isn't a person that hasn't, suffered the consequences of a loved one or a friend that has been affected by discrimination.
In addition to organizing coming out events like this one, Duarte stays busy year-round.
We have LGBT students come in every day needing support and resources, and national statistics show that 1 in 4 people identify somewhere LGBT along that spectrum.
The LGBTQA office is located in the Lead Center inside the University Union. This year, for the first time in NAU's history, the homecoming king and queen are members of the LGBT community. Coming up, NAU partnerships with community colleges train future nurses.